What happens when a compassionate young woman defies her doubts and helps a beggar? This heartwarming story explores the power of kindness and love. In unexpected ways, a young woman and her roommate Natasha were making their way back from school, satchels slung over their shoulders. The sun was setting, casting long shadows, and the streets bustled with people hurrying to their homes or establishing their evening ventures. During their stroll, the young woman abruptly halted, her gaze fixed on a youthful mendicant propped against a wall on the ground. His attire was tattered and worn, his expression weary and famished, yet an unusual quality distinguished him. He wasn't typical of the street panhandlers. He was youthful and quite strikingly handsome. A wave of compassion washed over her. "Let's offer some aid," she suggested, unzipping her bag to extract some currency. Natasha's brow furrowed. "Help? Whom do you realize the countless destitute individuals on these streets? If you persist in distributing funds to every single one, you'll swiftly find yourself in their very shoes." "He appears truly famished," the young woman whispered gently. "And do we possess surplus funds to squander?" Natasha pressed. "Recall our lodging payment is almost due." The young woman paused, considering. Natasha spoke the truth. Their rent was not yet fully collected, and the currency she held was designated for that expense. Still, an inner voice compelled her not to simply depart. Disregarding Natasha's admonitions, she knelt and placed some money into the mendicant's palm. "Here, buy yourself something to eat," she offered with genuine warmth. The beggar stared up at her, stunned. "Thank you," he managed in a faint tone, his eyes fixed on the money, as though unable to grasp that such a gift had been bestowed upon him. Natasha shook her head dismissively. "You are overly tender-hearted. People will exploit your kindness someday." The young woman offered. A faint smile rose and suggested, "Let's proceed." As they resumed their journey, Natasha let out a loud sigh. "Now you lack sufficient funds for the rent, all because you felt the need to act like a saint. What if that fellow is merely feigning his distress?" The young woman drew a deep breath. "If he is pretending, that is a matter between him and a higher power. But if he is genuinely hungry, at least I provided assistance today." Natasha rolled her eyes. "You are excessively compassionate. That's why individuals will perpetually capitalize on your good nature." The young woman offered no reply. She understood Natasha's divergent character. Natasha consistently projected an image of wealth, claiming her parents resided overseas. However, the reality was her parents lived in their humble village. Just like the young woman's own, Natasha detested others. Knowing the truth about her background upon reaching their modest apartment, both felt the weariness of the lengthy day. As soon as they stepped inside, Natasha tossed her bag onto the floor and confronted the young woman with a stern expression. "Give me your share of the rent," she demanded, crossing her arms. The young woman looked down, feeling a tremor of anxiety. "I don't possess it presently," she confessed softly. "Don't fret. My parents will remit funds next month, and I will reimburse you." Natasha's eyes widened in fury. "Are you jesting? I cannot continue like this. Each time, I am the one aiding you, saving you, and behold how foolish you are. You bestowed your money upon a complete stranger, a mendicant. What if he was fabricating? What if he merely sits there daily awaiting compassionate souls like you to shower him with money, whilst he idles?" The young woman took a deep breath. "It's all right, Natasha. You needn't speak of people in such a manner. You are unaware of the hardships he has endured." Natasha shook her head. "I don't care, I truly don't. That beggar ought to seek employment and cease his idleness. Everyone faces challenges, yet you do not witness all of us seated on the thoroughfare soliciting alms." The young woman sighed. "Not everyone is as fortunate as us, Natasha. Some individuals genuinely have no alternative." Natasha emitted a bitter laugh. "Fortunate? You deem this fortunate? We struggle to meet our rent, you even lack funds, yet you wish to embody some heroine." The young woman remained silent, merely observing Natasha, awaiting her conclusion. Natasha pointed a finger at her. "This is the last instance. I shall ever assist you again. Next month, when your rent falls, do not come weeping to me. I will not rescue you again." The young woman felt a slight sting in her heart. She had always known Natasha could be harsh, but today she was being exceedingly cruel. "I comprehend," the young woman stated quietly. "Good." Natasha snapped. She snatched her towel and stormed into the bathroom, leaving the young woman standing alone in the small living area. The young woman sighed and settled onto the small bed they shared. She knew she had complicated matters for herself, but deep within her heart, she harbored no remorse for aiding the beggar. The following morning, the young woman rose early. She still felt uneasy about her disagreement with Natasha, But she chose not to dwell on it excessively. After preparing for school, she packed some food in a small plastic bag. It was a meager portion, just some rice and beans from what remained in their tiny kitchen. As she walked to school, her gaze continually scanned the surroundings, until she reached the same street corner where she had encountered the beggar the previous day. A warmth spread through her heart. When she saw him still seated there the moment the young man spotted her, his eyes brightened. He sat up quickly, looking at her with surprise. "You returned?" he inquired. The young woman smiled and handed him the food. "Yes, I brought you something to eat." The beggar's hands trembled slightly as he accepted the food from her. "Thank you so much," he said, his voice brimming with gratitude. "You don't know what this signifies to me." The young woman sat down on a nearby rock. As she watched him eat, he ate slowly, as if reluctant to finish the food too quickly. She could discern that he had not eaten properly in a long time. After a few minutes, the young man wiped his mouth and looked at the young woman with a small smile. "My name is Matthew," he introduced himself. "I'm an orphan." A sharp pain pierced the young woman's heart. "I'm so sorry, Matthew. That must be truly difficult." He nodded. "It is. I lost my parents when I was little. I grew up in an orphanage. But when I turned 18, I had to leave. Since then, life has been tough. I've tried to find work, but nobody wants to hire someone like me. So I ended up here." The young woman's eyes softened. "That's truly sad," she said. "I wish I could do more to help you." Matthew smiled. "You have already done a lot. Yesterday you gave me money. Today you brought me food. You're the first person in a long time who has treated me like a human being." The young woman looked down, feeling shy. "I don't have much, Matthew, but I can bring you food whenever I can." Matthew's eyes filled with gratitude. "That is more than enough, thank you." She smiled at him and stood up. "I have to go now, or I'll be late for school." Matthew nodded. "Be careful on your way." As the young woman walked away, she felt something different in her heart. She didn't know why, but she felt connected to Matthew in a way she couldn't explain. A week later, one evening, Natasha stormed into their small apartment. Her face contorted with frustration. She flung her bag onto the table and opened the kitchen cupboard. Seeing that most of their food was depleted, she slammed the cupboard door shut and turned to the young woman. "What is occurring? Why is our food diminishing so rapidly these days?" Natasha demanded angrily. The young woman, who was seated on the bed, looked up calmly. "We consumed it, Natasha. That is why it is finished." Natasha folded her arms and raised an eyebrow. I barely remain at home. I go out every day, and upon my return, I only partake of small meals. How is everything depleted so quickly?" The young woman sighed. She knew the trajectory of this conversation. Natasha took a step closer, her eyes narrowing. "I trust you are not bartering our foodstuffs and bestowing the proceeds upon your impoverished mendicant acquaintance." The young woman's expression instantly changed. She rose and glared at Natasha. "Natasha, be respectful. Do not speak of my friend in that manner." Natasha burst into laughter. "Friend? A destitute, unclean beggar is now your friend. Are you hearing yourself?" She shook her head. "I believe you are losing your sanity. You need to consult a physician as soon as possible." The young woman drew a deep breath, attempting to rein in her temper. "Matthew is a human being just like us. Had life been kinder to him, perhaps he would be attending school, just as we are. Cease looking down on people, Natasha." Natasha rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, that boy is indolent. He ought to seek employment instead of sitting on the street awaiting girls like you to pity him." The young woman ignored her and returned to sit on the bed. But Natasha was not finished. She sat beside her and lowered her voice. "Since you possess no funds," Natasha began, "there is something we can undertake." The young woman looked at her suspiciously. "What is it?" Natasha smiled. "Let us visit the chief. He favors young women like us. If we go to him, he will bestow upon us anything we desire: money, food, garments, provided we comply with his demands." The young woman's eyes widened in shock. "Never. I will never engage in your sordid affairs." "Never," Natasha scoffed. "Sordid affairs? You are suffering. You cannot meet your rent. You lack food, and now you lament over a beggar. Be sensible. Chief will provide for us." The young woman shook her head firmly. "I come from a Christian household. I will preserve myself for my future husband." Natasha threw her head back and laughed. "Mother Mary. Oh, please, do not be a fool. Open your eyes. Look around you. Girls are earning money daily, and here you are suffering because of useless pride." The young woman said nothing. Natasha smirked. "You are missing out, my dear, but do not worry. I will revel for both of us." She rose, picked up her phone, and began typing. "Likely messaging Chief." The young woman merely sat there, her heart heavy. She knew Natasha had changed, but she didn't expect her to go this far. She prayed silently in her heart, asking God to help her. The next day the sun was bright, and the air was warm as the young woman made her way back to the street corner, where Matthew always sat. She carried a small bag with some food. Inside, she had managed to save a little from what was left. The house, even though she knew Natasha would be furious if she found out, when she arrived she saw Matthew sitting in his usual spot, looking deep in thought. The moment he saw her, his face lit up with a smile. "You returned, Matthew," said, sitting up straight. The young woman smiled and handed him the bag of food. "Of course, I told you I would bring you food whenever I can." Matthew took the food eagerly, but gently, as if he was handling something precious. "You don't know how much this means to me." "Thank you." The young woman sat on the small rock beside him and watched as he started eating. After a while, she spoke. "Matthew, there's something I've been wondering about," she said. Matthew looked at her curiously. "What is it?" "You said you never went to school, right?" she asked. "Yes." Matthew nodded. "Then how come you speak so well?" she inquired. "You sound like someone who has been educated." Matthew smiled. "I just listen to people. When they talk, I pick words from random passers-by and learn how they speak. I'm a fast learner." The young woman was impressed. "Wow, that's amazing. Not many people can do that." Matthew chuckled. "Well, when life forces you to survive, you learn quickly." The young woman looked at him closely. She had never met a beggar like him before. He was different. He had confidence in the way he spoke, and his eyes held a kind of intelligence that made her curious. "Where do you live?" she asked suddenly. Matthew swallowed the last piece of food and wiped his mouth. "I stay in an uncompleted building," he said simply. The young woman gasped. "What, that's dangerous?" Matthew laughed. "Dangerous? Don't worry about me. I'm a fighter, a warrior. No one can harm me." The young woman couldn't help but laugh too. "A warrior, you say? And what battles have you fought?" she teased. Matthew grinned. "Plenty. I fight hunger every day. I fight the cold at night. I fight people who try to steal from me. And guess what? I always win." The young woman shook her head, smiling. "You are funny, Matthew." Matthew shrugged playfully. "You have to be strong in this life. If not, people will walk all over you." The young woman sighed. "How? I wish I could help you." Matthew reached out and gently tapped her shoulder. "You are already helping me. Every time you bring me food, you give me hope. That is more than enough." The young woman felt a warmth in her heart. She didn't know why, but being around Matthew made her feel something she couldn't explain. He was poor, homeless, and struggling, but he had a strength that even rich people didn't possess. At school, Natasha sat with two girls under a shady tree, enjoying their company as they talked. She loved moments like this where she could make herself feel more important than she really was. "You girls don't understand," Natasha said with a proud smile. "I chose to be in this school. My parents wanted me to go to a private university abroad, but I refused." One of the girls gasped. "You refused? Why would you do that?" Natasha sighed, acting as if it were nothing. "I just wanted to experience life here. I wanted to be independent. My parents weren't happy about it, but in the end, they let me be." The second girl shook her head. Amazement. "Wow, that must have been a big decision." Natasha smiled. "Of course, but don't think they abandoned me. They still take care of me. They send me money every week. I never lack anything." The two girls looked at each other with envy. "You are so lucky." "If my parents were rich, I would never have refused to study abroad." Natasha laughed. "Well, I like it here, and honestly, money is not a problem for me." The girls sighed. "I wish I had your life. Everything must be so easy for you." Natasha smiled. She loved hearing those words, the attention, the admiration, and the way people wished they were her. "That's why I'm taking you girls out this weekend. Bills on me." The girls' faces brightened. "Are you serious?" one of them asked in shock. "Of course. What's the point of having money if I can't enjoy it? We'll go to the best restaurant, eat anything we want, and have a good time." The girls could hardly contain their excitement. "Natasha, you are the best." Natasha laughed. She loved the attention, the admiration, and the way people wished they were her. 2 days later, the young woman could no longer keep her thoughts to herself. She had been thinking about Matthew, every day worrying about his safety. The uncompleted building where he slept was not a proper place for anyone to stay. It was risky, exposed to dangers, and unsafe at night. She told Natasha that she disliked where Matthew was staying, and that she wanted him to live with them for some time before she found a lasting solution for him. Natasha immediately rejected the idea. She informed the young woman that Matthew's living situation was none of her concern. She said the young woman was beginning to act like someone who was falling in love with the impoverished beggar. She told her that she should be tired of suffering, that her parents sent her to school to secure a good job and lift them out of poverty, but instead she was preoccupied with a poor, unsightly beggar. Natasha asserted that it was already deplorable that the young woman was squandering her time on Matthew when she could be securing her future. She recounted that Chief and his associates were willing to provide them with money, but she had spurned the opportunity. The young woman retorted that Natasha was speaking nonsense. She declared that she would never descend to Natasha's wayward lifestyle and that she was not falling in love with Matthew. She added that even if she were, it was not Natasha's business, as she owed her nothing. The young woman warned Natasha to be cautious with the older men she associated with, and to cease living a deceptive life. Natasha countered that the young woman could not dictate how she should live her life, and that she should focus on herself. She stated that she desired nothing to do with the young woman's decisions, and that she would not coexist in the same dwelling as a beggar. The young woman had already made up her mind. She was going to help Matthew regardless of Natasha's opinion. A few days later, Matthew was hospitalized. He had been assaulted by some men who attempted to rob him of the meager funds he had begged for earlier that day. They beat him, kicked him to the ground, and left him in agony. A kind stranger discovered him unconscious and swiftly transported him to the hospital. The young woman heard about it and rushed to see him. She was worried. When she entered the hospital room, she saw Matthew lying on the bed. Looking weak, his face had a few bruises, and his arm was bandaged. She quickly turned to the doctor. "Doctor, how is he? Will he be okay?" The doctor smiled. "Don't worry. He is fine. He only has minor injuries. But young lady, this young man needs to find a better place to stay. The streets and uncompleted buildings are not safe. If he continues living like that, things like this will keep happening." The young woman turned to Matthew. "Did you hear that you need to leave that place? It's not safe for you." Matthew sighed. "I know. But where do you expect me to go? I have nowhere." The young woman took a deep breath. "Come home with me." Matthew shook his head. "Immediately no. I know Natasha will never allow it. And your room is already too small for both of you. I don't want to put you in trouble." The young woman was firm. "Forget Natasha. This is my decision. And as for the space, we will manage. I can't leave you out there again. You almost lost your life, Matthew. What if next time it's worse?" Matthew looked at her. "Unsure. You don't have to do this for me. You have already done enough." The young woman shook her head. "I have made up my mind. You are coming home with me. And that's final." Matthew hesitated, but he saw the determination in her eyes. He knew she wouldn't take no for an answer. After a moment, he sighed. "Okay, if you insist, I will come with you." The young woman smiled in relief. "Good, let's go home." The young woman and Matthew finally arrived home. It was late in the evening, and the streets were quiet as they entered the small apartment. The young woman felt relieved. At least for now, Matthew had a roof over his head. Just as they settled in, her phone rang. It was Natasha. She hesitated before answering. "Hello, Natasha." The young woman said. Natasha's voice came through the phone, sounding excited. "I just wanted to let you know I traveled. I'll be back in 5 days." The young woman was surprised. "You traveled to where?" Natasha laughed. "You know me, my dear. I have places to be and people to see. Don't miss me too much." The young woman rolled her eyes. "Okay, safe journey." Natasha didn't ask anything about the house, or if the young woman was okay. She just ended the call saying she would see her in 5 days. The young woman put her phone down and turned to Matthew. "That was Natasha. She traveled. She won't be back for 5 days. Matthew nodded. "That's good. At least I won't have to deal with her insults for now." The young woman smiled. "Exactly. For the next 5 days, you can have some peace." Matthew sighed in relief. "Thank you. I don't know how to repay you." The young woman shook her head. "You don't have to repay me, Matthew. Just focus on getting better." For the first time in a long while, Matthew felt safe. The next day, the young woman returned home. Looking sad, she dropped her bag and sat quietly staring at the floor. Her mind was troubled. Matthew noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" she sighed. "It's my school fees. I haven't paid it." Matthew looked at her with concern. "Why? I thought your parents always send you money." She nodded slowly. "They do. But this time they couldn't. They suffered a huge loss in their farming business. They barely have enough to eat, so they don't have any money to send me right now." Matthew's face softened. "I'm really sorry. That must be hard for you." She shook her head. "It's not their fault. They have done their best for me. I just don't know what to do now." Matthew smiled and raised his hand, as if he was holding an invisible staff. "I, Pastor Matthew, by the power invested me, decree that you shall get a helper very soon." She burst into laughter. "Oh, really? So now you are a pastor?" Matthew grinned. "Yes, you can call me Pastor Matthew, the great man of faith." She laughed again. "I wish it was that easy." Matthew nodded seriously. "God works in mysterious ways. Just wait and see." She sighed. "I really hope so." The following day, the young woman went to school still worried about her fees. She planned to go to the finance office and ask for more time to pay. But when she got there, something unexpected happened. The staff at the finance office looked at her and smiled. "You don't need to worry about your school fees." She was confused. "What do you mean?" They checked their records and told her, "Your school fees have already been paid." Her eyes widened in shock. "Paid by who?" The staff shook their heads. "We don't know. But everything is settled. You owe nothing." The young woman stood there speechless. She felt like she was dreaming. Someone had paid her fees, and she had no idea who. Without wasting time, she ran home, her heart racing with excitement. The moment she entered the house, she shouted, "Matthew, my school fees have been paid." Matthew smiled calmly. "I told you, God works in mysterious ways." The young woman sat down, still in shock. "I don't understand. I don't even know who did it." Matthew folded his arms. "Do you still doubt, Pastor Matthew?" She laughed. "Okay, okay, you win. Indeed, you are a true man of God." Matthew grinned. "I told you, when Pastor Matthew speaks, things happen." They both laughed, but deep inside she couldn't stop thinking about it. Who had paid her fees? 5 days later, Natasha returned home. It was early in the afternoon, and the young woman had already gone to school. Natasha unlocked the door and stepped inside, expecting to find the house just as she had left it. But the moment she walked in, she saw something she never expected. Matthew was sitting quietly in a corner reading an old book. Natasha froze for a moment, staring at him in shock. Then her face twisted with anger. "What are you doing here?" she asked sharply. Matthew looked up and stood. "Good afternoon, Natasha. Don't good afternoon me," she snapped. "What are you doing in my house?" Matthew took a deep breath. "She brought me here. I was attacked a few days ago, and the doctor advised me to find a safer place to stay. She said I could stay here for a while, until she found a solution for me." Natasha's expression turned into pure disgust. She looked around the room as if something smelled bad, then she covered her nose dramatically. "So she really brought a street beggar into my house?" she said. "I can't believe this nonsense." Matthew remained calm. "I know you don't like me, Natasha, but I didn't force her to do anything. She only wanted to help." Natasha scoffed. "Help? Is she planning to turn this house into a charity home? I cannot believe this. First she wastes her time giving you food, and now she brings you into my space." She pulled out her phone and dialed the young woman's number. The moment the young woman picked up, Natasha shouted, "Come home right now." The young woman, who was still in school, was surprised. "Natasha, what's wrong?" "What's wrong is that I just walked into my house and saw that disgusting beggar sitting here like he belongs." Natasha snapped. "You have 5 minutes to get here and take him out before I do it myself." The young woman's heart started beating fast. She knew this was going to happen, but she had hoped to explain everything to Natasha properly. "I'm on my way," she said quickly, and ended the call. She quickly grabbed her bag and rushed out of the lecture hall, ignoring the curious stares of her classmates. As she made her way home, she could already imagine the storm waiting for her, and she was ready to face it. The young woman rushed home, her heart pounding. She knew Natasha was angry, but she had to try and calm her down. The moment she opened the door, Natasha turned to her sharply. "What is wrong with you? How could you bring this beggar into our house without telling me?" The young woman took a deep breath. "Natasha, please listen to me." Natasha folded her arms. "Listen to what? That you've turned our home into a charity center. Do you know how embarrassing this is?" The young woman stepped closer. "Natasha, I understand why you are upset, but please just think about it. Matthew has nowhere to go. He was attacked before, and if I send him back out there, what if something worse happens? I know you have a strong heart, but deep down I also know you will not be happy with yourself if he leaves here and something terrible happens to him." Natasha sighed loudly. "I don't have time for all this emotional talk. I don't care about him. This is not our problem." The young woman continued. "But Natasha, what if it was you? What if you lost everything and had nowhere to go? Wouldn't you want someone to show you kindness?" Natasha looked away for a moment. She didn't want to admit it, but the young woman's words were touching something deep inside her. Natasha was silent for a moment. She looked at Matthew, who was still sitting quietly, avoiding eye contact. She sighed heavily. "It's just because of God," she finally said. The young woman's heart lifted with hope. "Thank you, Natasha. Thank you so much." Natasha raised a finger. "Wait, don't celebrate. Yet I give him just 1 week. He must find somewhere else to stay before then. If not, I will personally throw him back into the street." The young woman nodded quickly. "I understand. 1 week is enough. Thank you, Natasha." Natasha clicked her tongue and picked up her phone. Ignoring them both, the young woman turned to Matthew. "You see, everything is fine. Now Matthew gave her a small smile. Thank you, I owe you everything, the young woman smiled back. But deep down she knew this. 1 week was not going to be easy. 2 days later, the young woman received heartbreaking news. Her father was very sick, and she was asked to come to the village immediately. She had no choice but to pack a small bag and prepare for the journey. She sat Matthew down and told him about the situation. She assured him that she would be back in 2 or 3 days. Matthew's heart sank. How will I cope with Natasha? While you're gone, the young woman sighed. I know it won't be easy, but just stay out of her way. I will be back soon. Matthew didn't like the idea of staying alone with Natasha, but he knew the young woman had no choice. He wished he could go with her, but she refused. I will be fine, my father needs me right now, she said. Matthew finally agreed. He walked with her to the travel bus park carrying her small bag. Before she boarded, he looked at her one last time. Be careful, he said. I will, she replied. Take care of yourself. Matthew watched as the bus drove off. He felt uneasy, but he had no choice but to return home. When Matthew got home, he was surprised to find Natasha waiting for him with a strange smile on her face. She was leaning against the door, watching him closely. For a moment, Matthew was confused. This was not the Natasha he was used to. You know Matthew, Natasha said, her voice unusually sweet. I never knew you were this handsome. Matthew narrowed his eyes. What are you talking about? Natasha stepped closer. She has really done a good job on you. You don't look like the dirty beggar she picked from the street anymore. She paused, then smiled. But I can do much better. Matthew frowned. What do you mean? Natasha tossed her hair and smiled. I am more classy and wealthy, unlike your friend who is from a poor background. She has nothing but me. I can change your life. Matthew's face darkened. Natasha, what are you trying to say? Natasha laughed softly. Come to me, Matthew. Let's have fun. Let me show you what real enjoyment looks like. Matthew's expression turned into pure disgust. Never you, Natasha. The same person who sleeps with almost all the wealthy men in this town. You think I haven't heard the stories about you? Matthew continued. You are someone who will do anything for money, and you stand here talking about wealth. I also know your parents are very poor and struggling in the village. Stop living a fake life, Natasha. Natasha's face twisted in anger. How dare you talk to me like that? I was only trying to help your miserable life. I was even ready to manage you, but you are too dirty and ugly for me anyway. Matthew chuckled. I'm ugly, yet you are here begging me to have fun with you. Natasha's eyes burned with rage. I know that foolish girl told you all these things about me. I will deal with her when she returns. Matthew shook his head. She never told me anything. The wolves have ears. Natasha, change your ways before you get one bad sickness one day. Natasha clenched her fists. Enough. I've had enough of you. Get out of my house this minute. Matthew grabbed his small bag and slung it over his shoulder. I don't care. I was leaving anyway. Without another word, he walked out, leaving Natasha standing there breathing heavily in anger. She had lost control of the situation, and that made her furious. That night, as the young woman sat outside her family's small village house, enjoying the cool evening air, her phone rang. She checked the screen and saw Matthew's name. She answered immediately. Matthew, how are you? How is everything? Matthew sighed. I need to tell you something. Her heart skipped a beat. What is it? Matthew wasted no time. He told her everything. How Natasha had smiled at him strangely, how she had suddenly started calling him handsome, and how she tried to convince him to be with her instead of the young woman. He repeated every word she said, including how she insulted the young woman, saying she was from a poor background and not good enough for him. By the time he finished, the young woman was furious. That shameless girl. After all the things she said about you, she had the guts to try and get you for herself. Matthew sighed. She thought I would fall for her because she claims to be rich and classy, but when I refused, she insulted me and told me to leave. The young woman shook her head. That girl has no shame. But I'm not surprised. I knew she was capable of anything. Matthew hesitated for a moment before saying, how is your father? Have you seen him? The young woman sighed. That's what I wanted to tell you. My father was never sick. Matthew was confused. What? She sighed again. My parents just missed me. They wanted me to come home and see them, so they made up the story to make sure I traveled. Matthew chuckled. Well, so you came all the way for nothing? Not for nothing, she said. I got to spend time with them, and they are happy to see me, but I'll be coming back tomorrow. I can't stay here when Natasha is trying to turn my life upside down. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. Matthew said, you know she will throw you out the moment you turn right. She scoffed. Let her try, she can't scare me. I know you're strong, Matthew said, but listen, I found a job. The young woman's mood changed instantly. What, Matthew? You found a job? Yes. Matthew said proudly, I am now working as a security man for an old couple. They are kind people. And they even gave me the boys' quarters at the back of their house to stay in. The young woman's face lit up with joy. Matthew, this is amazing news. Finally, you have a job. Wait, there's more. Matthew said, sounding excited. Guess what she asked, eager to hear. I told them about you. I explained my situation and everything you have done for me, and guess what, they agreed that you can come and stay with me. The young woman gasped, Are you serious? Yes. They said you seem like a good person, and they are willing to let you stay, so when you come back, you don't have to worry about Natasha throwing you out. The young woman felt tears of joy in her eyes. Matthew, this is the best news I've heard in a long time. I can't wait to come back so we can celebrate. Matthew laughed. You better come quickly before Natasha burns all your clothes in anger. The young woman laughed too, feeling happier than she had in days. She had left the city with nothing but worries. But now she was returning with a fresh start. The young woman arrived home early in the afternoon, her heart pounding in her chest. She had made up her mind. She was leaving Natasha's house for good. She knew there was no need for an argument or explanation. Natasha had already shown her true colors, and she had no intention of begging for a place where she was no longer welcome. The apartment was quiet when she entered. Natasha was not around, which was a relief. Without wasting time, the young woman quickly gathered her few belongings, folding her clothes neatly into her small travel bag. She took a deep breath, looked around the room one last time, and then quietly walked out, shutting the door behind her. She knew that once Natasha found out she had left, she would be furious. But the young woman no longer cared. Her life was moving forward, and Natasha was now just part of her past. When the young woman arrived at Matthew's new workplace, she stopped in shock. The house in front of her was not just big. It was a mansion. The tall gates, the beautifully designed compound, and the luxurious cars parked outside all screamed wealth and power. She turned to Matthew in disbelief. Matthew, this is where you work? She asked, still trying to process everything. Matthew smiled. Yes. She shook her head. How did this happen? Just a few days ago you were struggling to find a place to sleep, and now you're working in a place like this. Matthew chuckled. Let me tell you what happened. He took a deep breath and explained, the day Natasha chased me out, I was walking on the road with nowhere to go. I was tired, hungry, and frustrated. I sat in a corner, crying, not knowing what to do. Then a car stopped in front of me. A man stepped out and asked me why I was crying. The young woman listened attentively. Matthew continued. I told him everything. How I lost my parents, how I had been struggling on the streets, how you took me in, and how Natasha eventually threw me out. The man listened to me patiently and then asked me a simple question. Do you want to work? Matthew smiled as he remembered that moment. I said yes immediately. And just like that, he offered me a job as a security guard. He brought me here, introduced me to his wife, and told me I could stay in the boys' quarters. The young woman's eyes widened. Wow, they are so kind. God bless them. Matthew nodded. Yes, they are really good people. She smiled. I need to thank them personally. Matthew nodded. Go ahead. The main house is just inside. They are Chief Emmanuel and his wife. They are very nice. The young woman straightened her dress and made her way to the main house. When the young woman entered the large, elegant house, she was warmly welcomed by Chief Emmanuel and his wife, Madame Stella. She smiled respectfully and said, Good afternoon, sirs. I just came to say thank you for all you have done for Matthew. He has been through a lot, and I truly appreciate your kindness. Chief Emmanuel and his wife looked at each other, surprised by the young woman's humility and gratitude. Madame Stella smiled warmly. You are such a well-mannered young lady. No wonder Matthew speaks so highly of you. Chief Emmanuel nodded. Yes, he told us everything. How you helped him when he had nothing, how you risked your own comfort just to make sure he was safe. It is rare to find a woman with such a pure heart these days. The young woman felt shy. I only did what was right, sir. Madame Stella suddenly looked at her husband and smiled before turning back to the young woman. Since Matthew said you two are just best friends, we have something to ask you. The young woman looked at them curiously. What is it, ma? Chief Emmanuel cleared his throat and said, We have a son who lives abroad. We have been searching for a good, kind, and respectful woman for him, someone who will love him not for his money, but for who he is. And from everything we have seen and heard about you, we think you are the perfect match for him. The young woman's heart nearly stopped. Excuse me, Madame Stella smiled. Yes, dear, we want you to consider marrying our son. He is a hardworking and responsible young man, but he has been so focused on his career that he hasn't settled down. We believe you would make the perfect Wife for him, the young woman was speechless. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. With all due respect, ma. She finally said, I am not interested, I have someone. Chief Emmanuel and Madame Stella exchanged glances before Madame Stella said, it's okay dear, we understand, we won't force you. But we will give you time to think about it. The young woman nodded. Thank you sirs, I appreciate the offer. But I already know where my heart belongs. They smiled at her and wished her well as she left. When the young woman returned, she was not happy with Matthew. She looked at him with a serious face. Matthew, why did you tell Chief Emmanuel and his wife that we are just friends? And nothing more, she asked. Matthew scratched his head, looking guilty. I'm sorry, I thought if I said anything else, they wouldn't let you stay here. The young woman sighed. Well, because of that, they now want me to marry their son. Matthew's eyes widened in shock. What? Yes, she continued. They said I am kind and respectful, and they need a good woman like me for their son who lives abroad. Matthew swallowed hard. And what did you say? The young woman looked at him with a playful smile. I told them I'm not interested. Because I already have someone. Matthew's heart pounded. Who? She folded her arms. You tell me? Matthew took a deep breath and stepped closer. Listen to me. I need to tell you something. She raised an eyebrow. What is it? Matthew looked into her eyes. I love you. I have loved you from the first day you gave me food on the street. You are the mother of my unborn children. I don't want anyone else. The young woman's serious face slowly changed. A small smile appeared on her lips. If that's how you feel, then you should go and tell Chief Emmanuel and his wife, she said. Matthew shook his head. It's not necessary. The only person I need to tell is you. The young woman smiled wider. So what now? Matthew grinned. Now we build our future together, just you and me. She nodded. That sounds perfect. Weeks later, Natasha started feeling sick. At first, she thought it was just stress or maybe a minor illness. She ignored it, thinking she would feel better with time, but as days passed, her condition got worse. She felt weak all the time, had frequent fevers, and lost her appetite. One afternoon, she decided to go to the hospital. After running some tests, the doctor sat her down and gave her the shocking news. Miss Natasha, the doctor said, looking at her with pity, your test results are out. I'm sorry to inform you that you are HIV positive. Natasha felt like the ground had opened up beneath her. Her whole body went numb. No, no, that's not possible, she whispered. The doctor sighed. I know this is hard to accept, but we need to start you on treatment immediately right now. It's 50-50 for you. Natasha's hands trembled as she held her head. Doctor, what do you mean 50-50? The doctor looked at her with concern. It means your immune system is already weak. You should have come earlier with proper treatment. You can still live a long life, but we need to act fast. Tears rolled down Natasha's face. She thought about all the men she had been with, all the times she ignored the young woman's warnings. Regret hit her like a heavy rock. She left the hospital that day in shock, her whole world crashing down. A few months later, Natasha's condition worsened. Her once glowing skin became pale, her body became weak, and she lost so much weight that people barely recognized her. She could no longer hide the truth. One evening, she had a severe attack and was rushed to the hospital. She was in unbearable pain, crying and struggling to breathe. The doctors did everything they could, but her condition was critical. In her weakest moment, Natasha turned to her mother, her voice barely above a whisper. Mama, please call her, she pleaded, her breathing heavy, her mother's eyes filled with tears. Her Natasha nodded weakly. Please, I need to see her. Her mother hesitated for a moment, then picked up her phone and dialed the young woman's number. The young woman was at Matthew's quarters helping him clean when her phone rang. She wiped her hands and picked up. Hello. The voice on the other end was shaky. It's me, Natasha's mother. The young woman immediately felt uneasy. Mama, Natasha, what's wrong? Her voice cracked. It's Natasha. She's in the hospital. Please come quickly. The young woman's heart pounded. Hospital? What happened? She has been sick for months. She didn't tell you? The young woman's breath caught in her throat. No, I had no idea. Please come, her mother begged. She keeps asking for you. The young woman didn't waste another second. She grabbed her bag and ran outside. Matthew tried to stop her, asking what was wrong, but she was too shaken to explain. She took the first taxi to the hospital, her hands trembling the whole way. When the young woman arrived at the hospital, she rushed into the ward. The moment she stepped inside, her heart broke into pieces. Lying on the hospital bed was Natasha, but she looked nothing like the Natasha the young woman once knew. Her once glowing skin was now pale and weak. She had lost so much weight that her bones were visible. Tubes were connected to her hands, and her breathing was slow and painful. The young woman covered her mouth, tears already falling from her eyes. She moved closer and sat beside the bed, holding Natasha's frail hand. Natasha, her voice cracked. Oh my God, look at you. Natasha slowly opened her eyes and saw the young woman. A single tear slipped from the corner of her eye. You came, she whispered. The young woman wiped her tears. Of course I came, Natasha. What happened to you? Natasha sobbed weakly. I should have listened to you, I should have listened. The young woman shook her head, her chest tight with emotions. I warned you, Natasha. I told you to stop sleeping with all those men. But you didn't listen. Now look where you are. Natasha cried harder. I was foolish. I thought money and pleasure were everything. But now I have nothing left. The young woman squeezed her hand. I wish I could do something to help you. Natasha looked into her eyes, her own filled with regret. Pray for me, pray that God forgives me. The young woman nodded as tears streamed down her face. I will, Natasha, I will. Natasha's mother stood in the corner weeping silently. She looked at the young woman with deep pain. She always spoke about you even when she was sick. She regrets everything. The young woman bowed her head, still holding Natasha's weak hand. She closed her eyes and began to pray, her voice filled with emotion. As she prayed, Natasha closed her eyes, 2 tears rolling down her cheeks. She had made so many mistakes, but now all she wanted was one last chance. The young woman arrived home after an emotional visit to the hospital. Her heart was heavy with everything that had happened with Natasha. She wanted to talk to Matthew to tell him about the heartbreaking moment she had just experienced. But when she entered the boys' quarters, Matthew was nowhere to be found. She looked around, confused. Matthew. She called out, no answer. She quickly took out her phone and dialed his number. The call connected, and Matthew's voice came through. Hello. She sighed in relief. Where are you? I just got home, and I can't find you. I'm in the main house, Matthew said. The young woman frowned. The main house? What are you doing there? Matthew chuckled. Just come, you need to see this yourself. The young woman was even more confused. Why would Matthew be in the main house? She hurried across the compound and into the mansion. When she stepped inside, her heart nearly stopped. Standing in the middle of the living room was Matthew, but not the Matthew she knew. He was wearing an expensive suit, looking clean, sharp, and unrecognizable. His usual simple look was gone, replaced by the image of a wealthy, confident man. Her mouth fell open. Matthew. What is this? Matthew smiled, surprised. The young woman stepped closer, still in shock. Matthew. What is going on? Why are you dressed like this? Matthew took a deep breath. There is something I need to tell you, something I should have told you a long time ago. Her heart raced. What is it? Matthew looked at her seriously. I was never poor or homeless. The young woman froze. What? Matthew nodded. I faked everything. She shook her head, trying to understand. Matthew. I don't get it. Why would you do that? Matthew sighed. Because after so many rejections and heartbreaks, I wanted to find someone who would love me for me, not for my money. The young woman felt like the room was spinning. So all this time you were pretending? Matthew nodded again. Yes, I was testing people. I wanted to see if true love still existed, if there was someone who could care for a man with nothing. And then, I met you. Her emotions were all over the place. Shock, betrayal, confusion, and disbelief. So you lied to me? Matthew looked deep into her eyes. I never lied about my feelings. Everything I felt for you was real. But there is more. The young woman swallowed. What more could there be? Matthew hesitated. Then, said Chief Emmanuel and Madame Stella, are my biological parents. The young woman took a step back. What? That's not possible. Matthew nodded. It's true. They planned everything with me. They wanted to find a good woman for me, someone who had a kind heart, someone who would love me without knowing I was rich. That's why they allowed you to stay here. Her chest tightened. So even the offer to marry their son, that was all a setup? Matthew nodded. Yes. Because I am their son. The young woman felt a mixture of emotions. Shock, betrayal, confusion, and disbelief. Matthew, you should not have gone that far. Matthew stepped closer. I know it was risky, but if I hadn't done this, I would never have found you. You are the most selfless, kind, and loving person I have ever met. You didn't help me because you thought I could give you anything. You helped me because you have a good heart. The young woman stared at him, her eyes filling with tears. Matthew, this is too much for me to process. Matthew gently took her hands. I know, and I am sorry for everything, but I need you to know something. The young woman looked up at him. Matthew got down on one knee. She gasped as Matthew pulled out a small, beautiful ring from his pocket. He said softly, from the moment I met you, I knew you were different. You cared for me. When I had nothing, you stood by me. When no one else did. You are the woman I want to spend the rest of my life with. Will you marry me? Tears rolled down her cheeks. She had dreamed of love, but she never expected something like this. Everything she thought she knew had changed, but one thing remained the same. Her love for Matthew. She smiled through her tears. Yes, Matthew, I will marry you. Matthew slipped the ring onto her finger, and applause filled the room as Chief Emmanuel and Madame Stella walked in smiling proudly. Madame Stella hugged the young woman. Welcome to the family, my dear. Chief Emmanuel patted Matthew on the back. You have made the right choice, son. The young woman wiped her tears. I can't believe this is real. Matthew smiled. Believe it, my love, this is just the beginning. Months later, the young woman and Matthew had a grand wedding. It was a day filled with love, laughter, and joy. People who once looked down on her now admired her. She had found love in the most unexpected way. And as she stood beside Matthew looking into his eyes, she knew that she had made the best decision of her life. Because in the end, love was never about money, status, or appearances, it was about the heart, and Matthew had found the one who truly loved his. Dear viewers, what lessons did you take away from this dramatic tale? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up, share it with friends, and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest updates. Thanks for watching and stay blessed.